Hey guys, in this video I want to go ahead and continue working on graphing some tangents and just give us more practice and just get an idea of how to do these, okay? So here we have our tangent, and remember that we said we want to go ahead and establish our toolbox right here. Similar to cosine and sine. Our midline or the middle of the graph, okay, is this guy right here. So -1, that's where I start at. So -1. So actually this guy is a vertical, excuse me, a vertical shift, and it's going to be going down 1 unit. Okay. Our amplitude is whatever it's in front of the tangent, the number. There's nothing in front, so automatically it's a 1. And then our period. Remember that the period for tangent is pi. It's not going to be 2 pi. For tangent, it's actually just pi. So whatever's in front of the x. In this case, there's nothing, so it's going to be just a 1. And so it's going to just be pi. Now normally we would take our period and we would divide it into 4 sections because that's 4 quadrants in the unit circle. But because tangent is on either side of the axis here, we're going to first divide it into 2 just to make the graphing easier for us. So that means 1, 2, 3, 4. Over here we're going to have pi over 2. And then to the left we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to have negative pi over 2. And this is going to be the location of our asymptotes, okay? Remember these broken lines where the graph is undefined. That's what our asymptotes are. So we're going to make these, okay? And that's going to give me a guide of how to graph this. Now for that, to make the other 2 quadrants or sections, we're going to take half of this. Well, how do you take half of this? Well, just multiply it by 1 over 2. So this guy is going to be pi over 4. And that's nice because on this side it's going to be negative pi over 4. So that makes it real easy for me. Okay, so I'm done with that guy. So I have all that. Now my horizontal shift. My horizontal shift is just take whatever's inside, x minus pi over 4. Set that equal to 0. We solve it. X is going to equal to positive pi over 4. So this guy, I'm going to be moving it pi over 4 units to the right. Okay, so that means I'm going to move all of this to the right. But first I'm going to go ahead and graph it. So let's go ahead and graph it. So first I start off with my midline. Where's it going to be at? -1. Okay, so -1 right here. Where's -1? Let's just say I'm counting every 2. So right here is -1, okay? That's my -1. Okay, so from here, now I just need my other 2 points. So now by the time I get to here, I should be at the amplitude. So from here, I'm going to count up. Okay, I'm going to count up how much? 1 unit, because of the amplitude is 1. So from here, from the midline, from the middle, I'm going to go up 1. So remember, I'm counting every 2, just so the graph looks a lot cleaner. Boom, right here. So I'm counting 1. So from here, by the time I get to this guy right here, I should be right there, 1 unit above. And then from the middle, I should be 1 unit below by the time I get to negative pi over 4, right here. And you can see the distance from the middle. It should be equally distanced, okay? It should be equally distanced. And then so now I just draw my curve. I'll just do a broken line because I know I have to shift it. Do angles like that, okay? Now the last thing I gotta do is I gotta move it because I have to shift it pi over 4 to the right. So that means everything's gonna move to the right, and that's okay. So how do I do this part? Well, I just keep counting. So this is 1 pi over 4, 2 pi over 4. Then this guy would be 3 pi over 4. And then if I count 2 more, that'll be 4 pi over 4. Okay, and that's it. So now notice that the asymptote, okay, is at pi over 2. So that means 1, 2. So that means 1, 2. That means it's going to be over here. This asymptote is actually going to move over here. Okay. The other thing, you can just think about just moving everything pi over 4 units. All right. So I think that's probably the easiest way to do it. So let's take pi over 4 and move everything pi over 4. So this guy moves pi over 4 is going to move there. You see this guy's going to move there. Okay. And I wish I had a different color pen, but I don't. but that's okay. So then this guy's going to move pi over 4. It's going to go over here. Right there. This guy's going to move pi over 4. It's going to move right there. This guy's going to move pi over 4. Is going to move right there. Okay. And then this asymptote is going to move pi over 4 right there. And I think that's probably the best way to do it so we don't get confused, just because these can get a little bit tricky sometimes. But notice this guy moved here, this guy moved there, and everything else I'm just moving it pi over 4, pi over 4. And so now, if I continue, it would look something like this. That goes up there, that goes right there. All right, guys. And you might want to use different colored pencils or markers if you're doing this one. That way you don't get confused. All right, but let's go ahead and keep doing some more. How about number 2? I'm going to graph some of this. Same thing. What's my middle or my midline? Hey, there's nothing out here. Well, that's great. I mean, there's nothing. 0. What's our amplitude? The number in front of the tangent, which is 2. What's my period? Remember, it's pi over b. What's in front of the x? Well, it's a 1/2. Okay, 1/2. Well, that's the same thing as multiplying by 2. Dividing is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. So you're going to multiply by 2, and this is going to give you 2 pi. Remember, take your period now, 2 pi. Normally we divide it by 4 because there's 4 quadrants, but because this is tangent, we're going to cut it in half first. Okay, first we're going to cut it in half. So that means half of the graph is on the right, half of the graph is on the left. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That means pi is over here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Negative pi is over here. Okay, and then that's going to be the location of my asymptote. Okay, and actually always when you're done, you want to make sure that you did it correctly, and so you want to pick a point, and we'll probably try to do that after this one. So here's my asymptotes. Then how do I figure out the other 2 points? Well, you're going to take half of this. Well, half from 0 to pi, half of pi is just pi over 2. Just multiply it by 1/2. And then this guy is negative pi over 2. So that's nice. That helps me out. All right, now, last thing I'm going to do is let's do a horizontal shift. So we have x over 2 plus pi over 2. Set that equal to 0. Okay, go ahead and move it to the right. So you're going to get negative pi over 2 over 2. Well, then how do you do this? Well, we're going to go ahead and do it just the easy way. We're going to go ahead and cross multiply this guy. Boom, right up there. Okay, that's what I'm doing. So x is going to equal to negative 2 pi over 2, which ends up becoming negative pi. So this guy, we're going to shift it pi units to the left. Okay, it's going to shift to the left because of that negative. Okay, all right, not too bad. So now let's go ahead and start graphing it. Okay, so now let's see here. Where do I start? I start at my middle. Well, the middle is 0. Okay, great. Makes it easy for me. All right, now that means by the time I get to this guy, I need to be at the amplitude. So what's my amplitude? 2. So from here, the middle, we're going to count up 2 spaces. Okay, and then we're going to count 1, 2. So this is 1 and this is 2. Okay, just keep it nice and simple. Okay, and then over here, right from the middle, we're going to count down to 1, 2. All right, here we go. There it is. And then just go ahead and graph it here. Nice little curve. All right, and it approaches these asymptotes. So now, okay, we got to shift it. We're going to shift it to the left. How much? Well, pi units, okay. So I need to make myself some room. Let's go ahead and extend this guy over here. Let's go ahead and put our radian. So this is 1 pi over 2, 2 pi over 2. So that's 3 pi over 2. And then another 2, that would be 4 pi over 2. Okay. All right. So each one is going to move pi units, okay? So that means this guy, instead of being a negative pi, is going to be a negative 2 pi. So right here. So here's my asymptote, my new asymptote. Right here. Okay. And then this guy, instead of being at pi, is going to be at 0. Okay. And actually, I'll go ahead and do it in red just to have a different contrast with the colors. Hopefully that helps. Okay. There we go. So now then this guy moves pi units to the left. So this is half a pi. That'll be right here. This guy moves over to negative pi. This guy moves over to negative pi over 2. All right. So this guy's going to look like this. Crosses through there. Curves down there. There it is. All right. So you notice that we go ahead and shift it, and just make sure when you go ahead and pick a point, plug it into X, and you should get your exact value. So let's see here. Let's say we pick when X is negative pi, I should end up with 0, because that's the point right here. Negative pi, you get 0. Okay. So if I put negative pi over here, I should get 0. And that makes sense, because if I put pi over here, negative pi, that'd be negative pi over 2 plus pi over 2, that's 0. Well, what's tangent of 0? Well, where 0, the 0 angle is right there. What's that point? That's 1 comma 0. What's tangent of this? Remember, tangent is dividing sine over cosine. Sine is 0 divided by cosine 1. 0 divided by 1 is 0. So that means this will be 2 times 0, which is 0. Hey, so we did it right. Cool. Okay. Let's go ahead and see if we can do 2 more, guys. Same thing over here. All right, what's my middle? It's 1. What's my amplitude? It's 3. What's my period? It is pi over what's in front of the x. Now you notice this is theta, and remember, theta is the same thing as x. Instead of being a letter for us, it's a Greek letter. It's just like A, B, C. So it serves the same purpose. So pi divided by b. So this is the same thing as pi divided by 1/2, which the same thing becomes 2 pi. We're going to take our period, 2 pi divided into 2 divided by half. Why? Because half of the graph is going to be on the right and half of the graph is going to be on the left. That's why we do it. And then so now we can do our asymptotes right here. Okay. Up here, asymptotes. And then from here to here, cut that in half again. That means multiply this by 1/2. Over here, multiply that by negative 1/2. Great. What's our horizontal shift? Well, we're going to do theta. I'm just going to change it into x. I like x better. Minus pi over 4 equals to 0. All right, we're going to go ahead and solve it. Move the pi over 4 to the right. And then just like before, we're going to go ahead and cross multiply this guy right up to the top. We're going to end up with 2 pi over 4. And then 2 pi over 4 is the same thing as pi over 2. And because it is positive, we're going to move it pi over 2 units to the right. Nice. So not too bad. And then we start off again. Let's go ahead and graph it. So let's see here. Where do I start? My middle. Oh, it's at 1. Okay, let's see here. We'll just say this is 1. Okay, this guy here is 1. Okay. Now, by the time I get to this place, pi over 2, I should be at the amplitude. So what's the amplitude? It's 3. Okay. So from here, we're going to count from the middle, right? From the midline. 1, 2, 3, right there. You see that? 1, 2, 3. It should be right there. And then from the middle, I should be down at 3. Okay, by the time I get to negative pi over 2. So from here. Okay. 1, 2, 3, right there. And I can tell I'm doing it right because you see this is the same distance right here. All right. So now let's go ahead and connect it. Right there. Boom, boom. Right here. All right. It's nice and elongated because this is a 3. It stretches it out. Now all I gotta do is shift it. Okay, so pi over 2 units to the right. So let me take my red. So that means this guy is gonna move pi over 2 units. So this guy's gonna be right here. Okay, right here, dot, dot, dot. Doot, doot, doot. Whoops. And then this guy, my other asymptote, is gonna be over here. And that's gonna be 1 pi over 2, 2 pi over 2, 3 pi over 2. All right, it's gonna be right over here. And then I can start moving my points. All right, so this guy is gonna go right here. This guy is gonna go pi over 2 units here. And then the other one, this guy's gonna go pi over 2 units there. All right, so then passes through there, curves down here. And you can see how the black line was the original, and then I shifted it to the right. All right, guys. All right, let's do one more. All right, I like this one because you have that negative in the front. Sometimes students get confused with that. All right. So what's my middle? It's at -2 there. What's the amplitude? Well, there's nothing in front of the tangent. It's that 1. And actually, sometimes students or professors call this a fake amplitude because it doesn't really go up or down. Stretches it like cosine and sine. But that's what we talk about it. Period. Pi over b. What's in front of the b? It's a 2. Okay. So that becomes pi over 2. All right. So now we're going to go ahead and take pi over 2. Instead of dividing it by 4, we're going to multiply by half. Okay. That's the same thing as dividing it by 2. Take the half of it. That's going to give me pi over 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That means pi over 4 is going to be over here. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. Negative pi over 4 is going to be on the left. So let's go ahead and do that here. And and continue on this side. Same thing over here. All right. Great. Now how do I get the other points? Well, we're going to take half of this, multiply by 1/2. That becomes pi over 8. Same thing over here becomes negative pi over 8. And now we can start graphing it. Let's do our shift. 2x minus 3 pi over 4. Set that equal to 0. Take the 3 pi over 4 to the right. And all right, now we're going to go ahead and divide by 2. Remember, dividing by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by 1/2. So this actually ends up becoming 3 pi over, what is that, 8? Ooh, looks like it's going to be tough. Well, we'll figure it out. All right, 3 pi over 8. And that's not too bad because I see a lot of 8s right here, which is good. All right, so now I can start graphing it. So what do I start? I start at my midline with -2. So 1, -2 is right there, right here. Okay. And then what do I do? By the time I get to here, I should be at the amplitude. The amplitude is 1. Okay. So from here, you go up 1. So right there. Okay. And then from the middle, you should go down 1. Right there. There you go, right there. All right, cool. So now it should look something like this. All right, nice. All right. Now all I have to do is just shift it 3 pi over 8 to the right. So let's see here. Might be a lot, so I got to give myself some more room. So let's see. This is pi over 8. This is 2 pi over 8. This is 3 pi over 8. This would be 4 pi over 8. And then this would be 5 pi over 8. Okay. So let's go ahead and graph that. So that means this guy, he's going to move 1, 2, 3. It's going to be right here at pi over 8. All right. Hopefully you can see it when I'm doing it in red. And then what about this guy? 1, 2, 3, right here. What about this guy? 1, 2, 3. right here. What about this guy? 1, 2, 3, right here. And then the last one is my asymptote. 1, 2, 3, right here. So this will be my new asymptote. Okay, when it's shifted, dot, 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 dot. So you can see not too difficult. Just kind of have to get the hang of it. Okay. And you can see I'm doing it. I can tell I'm doing it right because this distance is the same thing as this distance. If I can get the middle point, then these other 2 points are easier. And then my asymptotes, they kind of work nicely. The only thing, sometimes the overlapping might be a little confusing, so that's why I say use different colors. But hopefully that helps, guys, and I'll see you next time.